I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Future Template Parent Podcast, episode 154. I'm Carolyn Solo, your host, EMDR consultant and business coach for EMDR therapists. I spend a lot of time talking with therapists about a lot of things, but one thing in particular, moving from that fully booked hour by hour caseload to an intensives model. And that's probably why you're listening to this, right? So picture something with me for a second. It's a Wednesday. You've seen 5 clients. You've got 2 more. You've been trauma processing all day. You're who knows how far behind on your notes. And you're doing the math and you're thinking, I cannot do this anymore. How much longer can I go on like this? As you probably know, I have been there. I was there about 4 years ago, sitting in my office, mom of 3 young kids, feeling like I was one more call from the school away from total chaos. I was drowning, running on fumes, and I found that intensives were the answer. If this feeling is familiar, if you feel like you're doing all the right things, but the burnout is winning, this episode is for you. And I want to talk about whether this shift to intensives is right for you. I don't think everyone should do this, but I do think EMDR therapists should all be asking themselves if they should. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably at least considering that you should, right? So there's a lot that goes into this model, but I haven't sort of put it all together for you in a while. So I thought I would just talk more generally about, what can we do to make this switch? And I am going to talk a bit about how I'm running a sale on my EMDR intensive practice formula on demand course. The summer's a great time to invest in some learning and start thinking about changes in your practice before the fall season starts. So a little review about what that course can offer you in terms of making that shift. So what even is an intensive, right? What is that? If you're listening for the first time to this podcast, I've gotten a lot of new listeners since a couple episodes ago. So maybe this is the first time you're really thinking about this. So an intensive is, instead of seeing a client for 50 minutes a week for a year, you condense that work. Maybe it's a few hours a day across 2 or 3 days. Maybe it's a handful of extended sessions. But this isn't just, seeing few clients for longer. It's a total structural shift, and clinical in some ways, in how you practice EMDR and in how you structure your entire practice. So in the course I mentioned, we're going to walk through a lot, including the 8 phases of EMDR as they apply inside an intensive format, how you pace phase 2, and how that looks different when you have 15 hours ahead of you with someone, how that looks different from when you have months and months of hourly sessions ahead of you. The course talks about RTEP, the recent traumatic event protocol, and how I use that to structure my intensives and create a coherent treatment plan. So that's kind of what my intensives look like. And also I want to tell you that, just highlight that intensives are not a marketing gimmick. It's like a different clinical container. It's not just something to pull people in. You're providing them with a very different service. It creates a space where trauma processing doesn't get stuck in the same way, because you're not getting interrupted by the client's life stuff that happens between sessions. And when you do get stuck with a client in an intensive, there are so many beautiful ways to work through that. When you build the container well, you get deeper outcomes for clients and a totally different rhythm for you that is the solution. Well, not the solution, a solution to the burnout trap. So here's the part I think that a lot of people skip, and it's actually where I start in the course. It's mindset, right? Often when you start thinking about intensives, you run into that greedy label, or either you're putting it on yourself, or maybe you hear someone else say it. You start thinking, if I charge premium rates, are other therapists going to think I'm unethical? Am I being greedy? I hear this constantly. And here's what I say. Sending that invoice is not about being greedy. It's about shifting from that time for money model to honoring the transformative work that you're delivering, right? You're offering an efficient path to healing. It saves clients months of their lives, okay? Maybe even more. That has tremendous value. I hear people who I've done intensives with saying to me, I wish I had done this years ago. This is the most that therapy has helped me ever, on and on like that. So I think that the obstacle to start intensives is rarely logistics, although that plays a role. But often it's the stories you're telling yourself about whether or not you're allowed to want to practice like this. A practice that gives you more freedom and more income. A practice that looks so different than what others envision a therapy practice looks like, than maybe what you've ever envisioned that a therapy practice looks like. We tell ourselves a lot of stories about why that can't happen and why we're not even allowed to want it. So in the on-demand course, I have people do an exercise early on. Write a letter to yourself from 1 year in the future. Imagining the version of you that's already made this shift, the one who has the caseload, the fee, and the schedule that you actually want. And we envision that together in the course. What does that person a year from now tell you today? Maybe it's a little woo-woo, but it works because it shifts your thinking, and it helps you see with more clarity, oh, this is why I need to do this. And this is what it can do for me. Module 2, we talk money, right? And we do an exercise where you're sort of focusing on your actual expenses and needs, not the bare minimum, not the, I guess I can survive on this math. We look at the actual life you want and need to be funding. And then we work backwards. What do you need to charge for an intensive to hit that number? For almost everyone, this number is significantly higher than what they're currently charging for a 50-minute session. And that is very uncomfortable, like the hourly rate for an hour of an intensive versus, one single 50-minute session. And that everyone feels pretty uncomfortable with that. Not everyone, but a lot of people do. But, that discomfort should be information, not a reason to stop. The more grounded you are in a real number, the easier it becomes to say it out loud without panicking, right? You're not guessing. You're stating a fact about what it costs to sustain the incredible care that you're providing. And then we talk about getting clients, right? Marketing. Some people think, I need this perfect website and a massive social media following to charge $6,000 for an intensive. That's the model that I teach, the $6,000 model, which I will teach to you. But that is not true. I think the most important thing with high ticket intensives is high trust marketing. And that doesn't really happen through algorithms. It happens through people. So I'm still on social media, especially for my coaching business, but I do not rely on it at all to fill my intensive practice. I've seen that the most direct, efficient, and ethical way to consistently attract high-fee intensive clients is networking, building reciprocal relationships with other professionals, speech pathologists, OTs, psychiatrists, hourly therapists working with your ideal client, other EMDR therapists not doing intensives, massage therapists. There's so many options. Social media can be part of your ecosystem for marketing. It's part of mine, but I don't think it's the thing you want to rely on. Unless you're incredibly lucky to fill your intensive calendar. Networking is about human connection in a world where that's becoming rare. And honestly, part of what you're selling with an intensive is really in-depth human connection. I do 90% of my intensives in person. I do some virtual ones, but not very frequently. And I think honestly, the in-person thing is also what sells an intensive for lots of people. But you want to build that reputation in your community, whatever that means, like both your local community and your broader therapist community, as the clinician who gets results. So there's a lot of focus on networking and networking at a high level with the right people, connecting in a way that turns into longer term relationships and maintaining those relationships so they continue to support your practice. And if you've been doing my networking challenge this week, you should be seeing that. That's what I'm showing. This episode comes out on June 24th, 2026. So if you're listening right as it comes out, we're smack in the middle of my 5-day free email networking challenge. And you have been learning how to do this. And if you're not in that challenge, you will get all the info from the challenge and lots more in the on-demand course that will be on sale starting Monday, June 29th. The course will be over 20% off. So, okay, you think marketing, mindset, that's all well and good. Fee setting, what do I do in an intensive? Okay, you need to be clinically ready for what shows up in a concentrated, long period of time. Clients self-select into intensives when they're ready to go deep. And so you're going to see some complex stuff and you need to be ready for it. In the course, we spend serious time on a lot of advanced clinical skills. working with dissociative parts using the conference table technique and IFS strategies. The ASSIST approach, which stands for Acute Stress System Stabilization. CPOS, which is constant installation of positive orientation to safety. A lot on IFS-informed EMDR. We learn about targeted resourcing, different kinds of resources to kind of use when you get stuck and loop. I talk about the DNMS, Developmental Needs Meeting Strategy, which is an ego states preparation strategy that works great. Covers pre-verbal trauma. That comes up a lot. You may not expect that given what your clients may present with, but it comes up. So all of that gets covered in the course. So you need both clinical depth and business skills. And that's why I offer both in the course. The course is split about 50-50 between those two. So the EMDR intensive practice formula is 6 modules. Mindset is at the beginning. Then we talk about structure, schedule, fees, paperwork. Then we go deep into marketing, networking, social media, website, SEO, AIO, how to use AI ethically to aid you in your marketing and clinically. And then we do the clinical deep dives, dissociation, RTEP, how to adapt the 8 phases in an intensive, IFS-informed EMDR, protocols for different presentations, pre-verbal trauma. I'm forgetting some, but that gives you a sense. And then there's a module on where do we go from here. That's kind of how we close. It's self-paced, it's on demand, and it's built for busy people. And it's great for the summer to dip in and finish and make some progress for the fall. You want to be ready for that busy fall period, right? And it's built so that you can do it on your own, right? If I designed a course about building a sustainable practice and said you have to keep a brutal pace, that would be a little hypocritical. So I really focus on this being sustainable and something that you can do at a pace that is workable. I'm also really excited because I've added a bunch of new lessons, since the last edition of the course. Lots on SEO and AIO, content on working with perpetrator introjects, some stuff on hiring support for your practice, some more insight on using the future template in an intensive, and more than that. And you will have lifetime access to the course and all of its resources. So any new scripts or lessons or protocols that I add will be yours too. Anytime I update it, sometimes I'm like, that video sounds a little scratchy. I'm going to re-record. You'll always get all those. All right, so the window I've mentioned for when this sale is happening, running a sale on the course for the last week of June through the first week of July. And that's when that over 20% off sale is happening. If you've been sitting on this, turning it over in your mind, wondering if this is the year that you finally make the shift to intensives, this is the window. I'll put the link for the waitlist if you want to get notified as soon as you can purchase. And the waitlist has a couple little bonuses that are very time limited and in short supply. So that will put you on there too for that option. And if you have questions before you jump in, DM me on Instagram at Future Template Parents or send me an email. My email is in the show notes. And here's what I want you to take away from today. The hesitation you're feeling isn't a sign you aren't ready. It's just part of the process, right? If you're nervous, it's okay to notice that, but get specific about your fears. I want you to get grounded in a real number. That's part of what this course gives you. Get grounded in what am I going to charge? How am I going to do this? And give yourself permission to build the practice that actually fits the life you want, not just the one that you back into. And I have worked with many therapists with the exact same course, and they've gotten those results. They're booking 6K intensives every month, and they've been doing that for years. And they are booked several months out. So you can be that person too. Thank you for listening. And do not miss next week's episode, by the way. I'm interviewing Maria Lulo, who's the CEO of Mentaya. And I'm getting all the questions you all submitted about how Mentaya works and platforms like it and how it can support an intensive practice. It's a great conversation and a practical one too. So I hope you listen into that. And please reach out to me if you have any questions about the course. And if there's any other way that I can support you. I am excited for you all to build the intensive practices that support your life and give your clients amazing outcomes. Have a great week, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.